All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Katie Snow, and today we are doing our Gut Reset Program coaching call number 2. So we are getting down to the wire to the end of the 30 days. And so in this call, we want to share a little bit about the food reintroduction principles, and so that we make sure everybody, understands exactly what they need to do as they ease from the foods that they were eating during the program and going back to some of these foods that we removed. So super excited that everybody has done really well in the program and they've learned so much. And so this call, I know we're going to definitely have some Q&A at the end where we can answer some questions, but we definitely want to go over some of those principles so that we feel like experts going in and bringing some of these foods back in, the ones that we do choose to bring back in. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so do you need to reintroduce? And so that's a question that we asked people because I feel like a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm just supposed to eat, these things that are included in the standard American diet. So these high allergenic foods like wheat and dairy and soy. That's a question that you have to ask yourself. For so many people, after they've done 30 days of a gut reset program, they feel wonderful. I mean, there's so many symptoms that maybe they had before that have subsided. And so it's just a personal question you have to ask yourself if some of these foods are worth reintroducing back into your diet, especially knowing that maybe they were slightly problematic before, or maybe you didn't know if they were problematic before. But that is a question. So what we're going to go over today, we're going to talk about how to reintroduce, but in no way am I saying that you need to reintroduce these foods. We're going to go over just a little schedule of how we help people reintroduce foods that they do want to reintroduce. But again, not something that you have to do. This is simply an option. Sometimes you have something coming up, say an event, and so you're going to be eating some of those foods. And so if we do the reintroduction the correct way, you don't have to worry about maybe impacting your digestion in a way that maybe would bring about a dysbiosis and possibly a little tummy problem if we do it the right way. So again, do we need to reintroduce? You pick the foods that you want to do, but we're going to show you the correct way to do that. Let's see. So how to reintroduce. So we'll just go through these few steps, but keeping the rest of your diet the same as during the gut reset. We don't want to just start changing and adding things kind of randomly. We want to do this in a fashion where it's very organized, because remember, we got our little magnifying glass out and we're trying to figure out, is one of these foods that we're reintroducing really something that it just doesn't work well with your system? And so we have, our little glasses on and we're looking and we're examining. So we want to make sure that we still have plenty of the daily food logs and the weekly symptom tracker sheets, because some things can be very subtle. You could have where maybe you've taken eggs out completely and then you're going to add eggs back in. But if we're not watching for those little subtle changes, you might miss. And by the time that you've added the next item in, you're unsure if was it the eggs or was it the wheat. And so if we are really paying attention as we're reintroducing and doing it in this way where we're adding just one food per week, then we can really know, like, hey, this for sure. And then we'll talk about how we can just pull it back out and go on to the next food. And then we can try it again later. Some things are coincidental, so maybe you had, at the same time you were reintroducing a food, perhaps there could have been a pathogen that got in somehow, and so you think like, oh, I'm having some tummy trouble. Maybe it's the eggs, when maybe it was just coincidental. At the same time as you were reintroducing that food, you had some other things going on. And so again, journaling is the easiest and best way to do it. I know it's a little bit of extra work. However, if you can journal, then you just know, okay, like, wait a minute, I'm doing an egg white and now I'm adding the egg yolk, because remember, we're stair stepping, and then you get to the whole egg, and then once you add the second egg in one sitting, in one meal, that maybe is what just trips the circuit. And so if we're journaling every day, we know, hey, I did fine with the egg white. Now we're moving on to the egg yolk, and now we added in the whole egg. And then when we get to where we're adding multiple eggs in one sitting, and we see like, oh, that's not, it could be a quantity item. And so we'll talk about how whenever we do a rotation diet, we rotate foods back in. Sometimes it's a quantity, and sometimes it's, if we can do a certain quantity every few days, then we're happy, like our system's happy. So we'll talk about that again in just a minute. But we'll start from a small amount of the reintroduced food and gradually increase the dose for a week and watch for delayed reactions. So that's the kicker right there. It's delayed a lot of times with these responses. And so if we don't watch really carefully and give it a full week, we could actually pick the wrong item that we think is causing a response or a reaction. And it's really the other item, but we just didn't give it enough time, and the quantity, we didn't kick the quantity up. We want to definitely try different forms. And so, say, example, when we're introducing eggs back in, we want to make sure that and this is an option. Some people are like, and I'm not doing a raw egg, but some people are okay with it. So if we're trying different forms, we can see, again, not just a quantity, but the way that we cook it, that could be causing some of the issues. But you can try raw, you can try cooked, you can try fermented, you can try just the egg yolk only, just the egg white only. And of course, we want you to try just the egg white and just the egg yolk only. But if we're trying to troubleshoot, once we get to a certain point and we're like, wait a minute, we're not jiving here, if we back up and try again, just, egg yolk, there could be something with the egg white. Remember, egg white, the protein is a little harder to digest. And so we typically recommend people not to do egg whites on a routine basis, just eating egg whites, because the way God made the egg is it's all one complete food. And so some of what helps digest the egg whites is in the yolks. And so we want to make sure, not for the purposes of reintroduction, but for the purposes of like eating it as a whole complete food. When we do eat it, it is best to eat the egg. But we've had some people who they just do okay with the egg yolk only. And so if we're watching as we're doing this slowly, we can pick up on maybe how the body responds when we're doing, egg whites, because of how much energy it takes to break down the egg white. And make sure you're only introducing one food at a time. So when we get to the point where you're doing wheat, we don't want to do like wheat and eggs at the same time or during that same week. And so I know there's circumstances, we talked about this on the last call, where, you're in a situation where you're like, okay, I'm here and somebody cooked for me. Remember, just prepare ahead of time, because you don't want to get where you're in a pinch because you didn't prepare like you've done this whole time, and get in a situation where you're consuming all these different foods all at once and your body is a little overwhelmed. And so then you won't know what's going on. You'll have to like dial it all the way back down and start the reintroduction again. But do the best you can to prepare ahead of time if you do have an event scheduled. Make sure that you write down what you ate and any symptoms that you experience in your daily food journal. Again, the journaling is so important. And if you experience any negative symptoms, just stop the reintroduction, go back to the gut reset diet. Once those symptoms dial back down, then you can just start back over using the schedule. And again, the example schedule that we're going to go over, there's not an exact science like you need to do the eggs first and then do the wheat. Like, it's your decision to reintroduce, and then it's your decision which food you reintroduce at what point. But we're not saying that you need to do eggs first or a certain food first. But once you have the 1 week done where you've slowly, incrementally reintroduced the food in the quantities that we suggest, then the next week you move on to the next food on the list. And again, you can swap it up. You can pick, if it's tomatoes that you decide to reintroduce, you can do that next. You don't have to do, say, wheat. Some people like, for example, my husband, Dr. Snow, he's celiac, so he doesn't do wheat at all. So in this situation, he wouldn't reintroduce wheat because he's already confirmed, based on testing, that his system doesn't do well with wheat. And so he wouldn't have that as an option. So if a certain food is just a no for you, don't worry about that. We're not saying in any way, even looking at the schedule, that you should reintroduce a certain food. So this is the schedule, and I just want to go over this. This was sent to everyone in the email, so you have this. I think it's good to do a screenshot. If you want to print it out, that's great too. But the reintroduction schedule is a 7-day window for each food. So if we look at week 1, and again, you can pick the day that you're going to be starting your reintroduction. You just stay on the gut reset program if you're not quite ready. So the program that you've been doing for the last 30 days, you just keep doing it, and you pick the day you want to start. But it can be a Sunday, it can be a Wednesday, but you're going to start with 1 egg yolk. All the rest of your meals, the way that you're eating, you'll just keep it the same. And then the next day, you can add just an egg white. And again, there's not a certain way to prepare. You can do these different ways if you want to do scrambled, or you can put them in a little ramekin and cook them in your toaster oven. You can do it any way that you want to, but just do the quantity the way that we recommend so that you can see if you're having a response. And the next day, then you'll do 1 whole egg. And then the next day, 2 whole eggs. And again, some people, that's a lot for them to eat 3 whole eggs in a sitting. I don't know if I could eat 3 whole eggs. So do the best you can. So we're not saying like, fill yourself up and make yourself sick eating 3 eggs. But if you can get 3 eggs in, it's a quantity in a proportion so that we can see, again, if the body can handle that load of the eggs altogether. The next week, you can keep the eggs or whatever food you started with on board. If you're tolerating it well, you're good to go. And then the next week, you'll start with this example in the schedule. We started with dairy. So again, that's up to you. You can pick tomatoes next and just skip dairy. Say, I'm not ever adding dairy back in, and that's fine. That's actually the way that I do it. I just don't do well with dairy. And so I would just skip to the next week and add the tomatoes in. But if we're doing dairy, the reason that we picked butter first is it has less of the casein protein, which is the more inflammatory protein. So starting with butter, 1 tablespoon the first day, the next day, 2 tablespoons of butter. And then you can add a little bit of heavy cream, although the heavy cream is probably the most inflammatory. And so maybe some people want to reintroduce dairy, but only on a very light level. So they may just do butter or ghee, which is a clarified butter, and just stick to that when they reintroduce. And they don't want to go into, the different milks like heavy cream or half and half or yogurt. And that's totally acceptable and totally fine. So that's up to you, to what degree you want to introduce even a certain food type, so maybe you are okay introducing dairy, but you only want to do butter, and that works. And then when it comes to tomatoes, reintroducing those, it's an incremental amount. Now, let's say we get to, the third food where we're reintroducing the tomatoes, or say the corn, and you get to that first day and you're just seeing some different symptoms. So it may be a little bit of bloating. You might see a little puffiness. That's when you need to be cued in and listening to your body. Like, what is your body saying? Because that food just may be that's not, it's not going to work for you. So the way that we know for sure, and that it's not coincidental, is go ahead and just shut it down, give your body a few days, and you can reintroduce the next food. And so say we're just going to skip over to the next food, which is soy, for week 5. And you get that week under your belt, you can go back to, if it was corn that caused a little bit of a response, and just see how your body does. Now, if you feel like it's just a really subtle response, but you do notice it, sometimes what we recommend to people is to wait 4 days. And so if you're doing something and you feel like, hey, I love this food, I do okay with it, maybe it's a little subtle swelling or something that I can deal with, that food can be left in a rotation where you don't have it any more than every 4 days. Now, sometimes that's a little harder. So say if someone is introducing onion or garlic, those items are, a lot of times they're minced up and they're put into food. So say like it's in a meatball, or even like wheat. That's a good example, is you go and you order spaghetti and say, I have gluten-free noodles and, I'm doing everything, but you don't realize there's breadcrumbs in the meatball. And so if you can really examine what it is, and hey, my body can tolerate as long as I don't do it any more than every 4 days, you find what that amount of time is. But what we have seen with patients in our office is if you can rotate out every 4 days on a mild response, and a lot of times we're using these food sensitivity tests to have that information. But again, you can totally do it without a food sensitivity test, but you can rotate out every 4 days, and then just see when you go to that 4th day and you're introducing it again, just see how you respond. Sometimes you need to stretch it out to 6 days. And then we have some people that have a pretty moderate allergy, let's say to dairy. And as long as they're pushing that, if they do have it, like say for a special event, they just want to have as much time away from it as they can. So we have some people that go like once a month, say I'll have a little cheat day where I have pizza once a month. I found a gluten-free pizza, but it has dairy on it. So if that's tolerated, that's up to you. But just our recommendations are, if something is irritating your gut, we don't want to have where that gut wall, it's nice and tight. And then when you're having that food that is irritating and it's opening up the gut walls, you're just putting yourself in a situation, opening the door to a leaky gut or to a dysbiosis, that we know, hey, if I can find a substitute, say for dairy, like there's the Daiya is a brand, Daiya, has some really, really good dairy substitutes. I do have to drive a little ways to Whole Foods to get them, but if I know, hey, I want to have pizza once a month, but I have to have it, this way, because, if I put dairy on there, it's just going to end up a mess. So I just make sure I have, when I go to the store, what I need to make that. And I just know, hey, that's my pizza day. I can have pizza because I'm making it a certain way. So it's just not worth how you feel right now when you're at that 30-day mark, how good your body feels. It's not worth going and plunging into something that your body can't tolerate. So it's one thing with these reintroduction of foods that you're not sure about, but if you know that this food is just doesn't jive with me, it's not worth it. Just find, keep some of these recipes that have some substitutes that are satisfying, but won't get you in trouble. So these are some of the other symptoms to watch out for. So we talked about swelling. That's a pretty common one that we see. I'm sure some of you guys who have done this program for the last 30 days, what those symptoms are for you. But some people don't know what these symptoms are. And so just making sure that you're looking out for all these different symptoms. So brain fog, fatigue, malaise, so just feeling really tired. That's something that's pretty common, for people. Like they eat something and it's a delayed response. And so it might be the next day where they feel like just really tired. It's hard for me to get out of the bed. So what did I eat yesterday? What did I reintroduce into my diet yesterday? So of course, gut symptoms, that's, of course, something that's pretty easy. Okay. I had some swelling, some gut like puffiness, bloating, respiratory symptoms. So if you see more mucus, so if you get up, sometimes there's a little bit of swelling in the sinus area because there's more mucus in that area the next day. Some people have a little bit of, we call them sleepies, but around your eye. And so that's because the mucus actually came out through the eyes as you were sleeping. So again, if you're seeing some of that, that's just excess mucus. But if you're having a little bit of where you can feel like you can't clear your throat and some of that extra mucus, what did you eat the day before? What did you reintroduce? Skin breakouts, that's actually pretty common even in adults to see skin breakouts after eating something that was irritating to the gut. So what we normally tell people is what's going on the inside in their digestive tract. When you're having something on the outside, that's a reflection of what's going on the inside. So having a skin breakout definitely means we got those gut walls are a little bit irritated. Pain. So very common that people have joint pain. And we've seen that a lot too with some of the vegetables. So in the nightshade family, where you have tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, and I know Miss Liz, we were talking about the Plant Paradox book a little bit ago, and he hits really hard on nightshades because of the response the plant that we have to these plants, but they have in that family of nightshades, especially tomatoes. And then when it's tomato season, it's so hard. Like right now, you can get, some beautiful homegrown tomatoes out of your garden. So you might be eating a little bit more because you have like this abundance in tomatoes. And so you're eating, it's a quantity thing. You might have a little bit of joint pain, a little aching in the joints. So again, what did we reintroduce? Was it tomatoes or something in the nightshade family, or just something your body can't handle really well? Changes in appetite. So we've seen people when they are eating something that their body just doesn't deal well with, they'll actually have an increase in appetite, or they'll have some of the anxiety and nervousness. They'll just feel like an unusual amount of anxiety. Again, that's the gut being irritated from these foods. And it's very subtle sometimes. You feel like, oh goodness, I just don't feel right today. Or I feel like, a little stressed out, that little bit of tension, a little bit of stress, and then it kind of turns into anxiety. Be watching out for that as you're reintroducing these foods. So again, it can happen within a few hours up to a few days of consuming the food. So give those foods as you're reintroducing, give them some time so you can really evaluate. But there is a full list. This is a partial list of symptoms, but check your weekly food journal and you'll see in there a complete list that you can circle, or the weekly symptom tracker. And then just make sure that you circle like the symptoms. If you're noticing just in the first couple of days, like a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety, but by the time that you get to day 5 of that week, you're reintroducing that food and you're like, it's like an 8, we know, hey, wait a minute, let's, shut this down because we know this food is definitely causing this response. So if you do experience a food reaction, again, just, stop eating that food immediately, of course. Let your body recover until the symptoms subside. So it might be, 2 or 3 days to let that inflammation get down in the body. And one thing that we've seen that's worked really well is using a turmeric product or activated charcoal. So turmeric power is one of the products in our Dr. Eric Snow line. It's an actually fermented powder. I don't have a bottle here right next to me, but it's a blend of turmeric and ginger, and it's fermented. And so it works really quick to get some of that swelling and inflammation out of the gut. And so as you are reintroducing some of these foods, it's nice to have something that you can combat some of these symptoms pretty quickly. And so having a product, a turmeric product or a charcoal readily available, that really is convenient. And it can actually work pretty quick, especially when people have anxiety. It's so excruciating to deal with that symptom. And so if you can have something that can combat it pretty quick, really makes that manageable as you're reintroducing. So we want to thank everybody for joining us today and for joining us on the Gut Reset program. We know you've learned a tremendous amount of material, and you're just going to continue to learn. And as you reintroduce foods, you see how these different foods affect you. But make sure you keep journaling, keep listening to your body. And as you've done this, you've sharpened that skill of paying attention. I always, I've told our son, he's 12, since he was little, anytime he's had any little symptom, we have trained him in this manner that he knows. It's so funny because he'll feel a certain way and he's like, what did I eat yesterday? And it's funny, you have an 8 or a 10-year-old as he's grown up, that he does that. And he does that with family members. My parents like, man, I have a headache. Well, what did you eat yesterday? But see, we need to train our family members. We need to train our kids to think of it in that manner. Like, what did I eat? Because if you can really find, if there's that one food in your body, it is life-changing to pull that food out and be done with it. And not deal with those symptoms just over and over and over because you didn't stop and go, wait a minute, like, where is this coming from? But it's really cool to see, people that they've ate something their whole life. And when they find what that food is that is just giving them so much heck and they pull it out, it's life-changing. We've had people lose 5 and 10 and 15 pounds just from one food that they pulled out. We've had people who they've had a constant post-nasal drip and they just didn't know when they pulled, say if it was dairy, they pulled it out, it's gone, like no post-nasal drip. And that was leading to like sore throats, leading to GERD, because a post-nasal drip can cause things like GERD. And so there's people taking medications for symptoms that it's just a food that they're eating. And so when we can figure out what that is, get to the root cause, pull it out, it's life-changing. And so we just love what we do. We love being able to be investigative and help people be investigative in their health, and just live their best life, to get up every morning and feel I have great energy. I feel good. I want to go out and like do everything that I can do, what God's given me as, in my purpose. But when you don't feel well every day, it's hard to do that. It's hard to get up and have a positive mindset, to have the energy that you need, to have the motivation that you need to be positive. And so it's an amazing thing that we get to do to help people troubleshoot. We do want to make sure people know this gut reset program doesn't have to be just a one-time deal. If you have seen such an amazing difference in 30 days, I do what's called spring cleaning. It's just an excellent time. It's like a little like time clock. It's like you get in and clean closets out, and you vacuum things behind things you don't do but once a year. But do that to your body. Your body's so much more important than the dust that's behind the couch or under the couch. Imagine you setting, this system where once a year you're doing a gut reset program where you're doing a little deep cleaning of your gut. And you just are slowing down the aging process. You are making sure that you're staying the weight that you want to be. You're making sure that you're not getting off track and causing inflammation in the body that can lead to something else. So do this for you so that you feel good on just an all the time basis. I want to open up now for any question and answer. I know we have Miss Liz on the call today, and it's up to you, Miss Liz, if you want to share a little couple things, testimony wise, but I do want to let everybody know something that we recommend. There was 3 supplements for the gut reset program. It's not necessary, although we have done it before in certain cases, to take the gut rescue and the gut revive on a regular basis. Those are more for cleanup work and a little bit of the tissue repair work. but the Gut Restore is a very amazing probiotic that can be taken daily. So, just one capsule a day, just like we did on the gut reset program. So it's something that you can continue to keep your microbiome just operating optimally. So what we wanted to do is just a little fun prize. So we know we've had some great testimonies. I've just heard so many great things that people have emailed in, and it's exciting to be a part of making a difference in someone's life. But we wanted to do a little fun game that if whoever can send in a video testimony, it could just be 30 seconds, 1 minute. It does not need to be exhaustive, but just share your experience with participating in the Gut Reset program. And if you do that, you send it to me, I will send you a bottle of the Gut Restore at no charge. I'll drop that in the mail to you as our way of saying thank you, because this is how people know about a life-changing thing like the Gut Reset program as testimonials. We've all been there where we've shared our testimony in different ways. Maybe it was the way that, we made a garden, and so we shared it with somebody, and then all of a sudden they're able to eat healthier because they have a garden. Or, maybe the way that they get up and pray every morning, and so it's been life-changing, and they share that testimony, and then that person, benefits. So for people to know a program, about a program like this, it starts with somebody sharing their testimony. So we'd love to hear your testimonies and be able to share it with other people. And I'd love to give you a bottle of the Gut Restore. So definitely share those, and I'm happy to drop a bottle of that in the mail to you. But if Miss Liz, if you want to share anything, I'd love to hear it. And that's okay if you don't want to.
No, I'll go ahead and share. I've been with you and Dr. Snow, as you know, for a long time. And I went through a long period where I just couldn't set my mind to do what I needed to do. And one symptom that I have is that my skin always breaks out. Within 2 weeks of this program, it all cleared up. And I knew it would. I just had to cut out sugar and junk food and other things that were irritating the gut. I have a dairy and a soy allergy, but I wasn't really staying away from dairy like I should. Never gave up butter, which I did this time. But that is only the second time that's ever happened in my life. And it's when I went through y'all's programs. The other thing is acid reflux just about did me in. I did not want to take the medication because I knew how bad it was. So I knew I had to do it through y'all. And as hard as it was, I asked God to help me this time, and I was able to do it. And I enjoyed learning to eat and cook in new and different ways. So it just proves it all that I knew that my gut wasn't right. I knew what the symptoms were. I just had to do it. So I want to thank you for this program because it really helped. Also with your YouTube videos, those are really, encouraging and helpful too. So I'm going to continue doing what I need to do and go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And that's just what you said. I mean, those are really big deal. GERD is one of the top 3 most common symptoms that people, they don't even go to the doctor for. They go, and that you can see when you go to a drugstore. And my background as a pharmacist, there's a whole wall of acid reducing products. There's the proton pump inhibitors, there's the H2 blockers. So I know everybody knows like Pepcid and Zantac, those are the 2 big ones, but people don't realize that it's a food that they're eating, creating a symptom, and then they're just masking the symptom with something that they don't realize what it's doing to their body. So people that are on some of these acid reducing medications for years, say like a 10-year window, they are actually putting themselves at risk for osteoporosis, osteopenia, because their body can't absorb calcium at that pH with what your body needs. It needs that acid to break food down. But if you're just shutting down those pumps or blocking the acid, your body can't do what it's supposed to do, So it's actually giving you this symptom saying, hey, it's this food, and we're just turning the signal off. We're just, hey, don't want that symptom anymore. Let's just turn it off. But what we do in the process, we've had people come in and it's like, I didn't know, it's like 10, 15, 20 years of taking a medication like that. But it's okay. We're always like, okay, well, from this point on, we know, and it's life-changing again to get off of a medication if you feel like you've had to take it to just function because your body was yelling at you so much with the symptoms. So, hey, that's amazing, to like not have to deal with GERD symptoms, because it's very tough. It's very tough to deal with those symptoms. And I think, Miss Liz, you said you had lost a little bit of weight. And so again, this isn't a weight loss diet, but
I lost 6 pounds, and I haven't done that since the very first program I did with y'all.
That's
So
awesome.
I just have to do what I know. Like, I ate a little bit of dairy one day. Well, I had a sinus drip the next day. That's always my symptom. I know what it's from. So it's just paying attention to your body. And it's so easy to overlook small things, but if you focus on it and you do it right, it'll come, in time. You'll learn how to do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. We appreciate it. And I know that so many people, that are going to watch this whenever they're available to watch it. And I'm sure they have some great testimonies too from the last 30 days. So, well, that is it today. We'd love to have video testimonies. So those of you who are watching, you want to share just a 30-second to 1 minute video, and you can email it to help@drericksnow.com. And I'd love to have it, and we'll share a bottle of Gut Restore with you. And again, if anybody in these days that they're wrapping up, as they're starting to reintroduce foods, any of you guys have questions, make sure you email. We want to help you. We want you to be successful. We're so excited to partner with you on this program and just see the changes and hear about the changes. So here's to transforming your health naturally. I'm Dr. Katie Snow. We'll see you next time.